Hi, you're with Peter Carr and Scott Stewart on LTV's The Research Channel. Well, today we're crossing back to the United States and we're talking to Andy Mann, who's the Vice President of Strategic Solutions. And Andy, I believe you're fresh from a week at CA World in Las Vegas.
Yeah, look, hi Peter, how you doing? Straight off the plane, I'm still alive, so I think that's a win.
Yeah, you look surprisingly fresh.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
So for those who follow Andy on Twitter, we know he's a prolific commentator on the industry and very feverish about cloud. So, and we know there were a couple of key announcements made at CA World this week, Andy. So for those of us who couldn't make it over, can you give us a couple of the high points?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there was a whole lot of stuff. Brand new releases was part of the really exciting stuff we did at CA World this week. So we had 4 really significant announcements pertaining to cloud. The first one was a brand new solution called CA Cloud 360. So we call it central intelligence for the cloud. It's a decision-making engine. It's a combination of products which help CIOs and VPs decide what applications, if any, to move to the cloud, what clouds to move them to, whether it's private or public infrastructure, platform, or software as a service, and when to move them. So it takes a prescriptive 4-step approach using portfolio management, using service level management, using capacity management, and using simulation and modeling tools alongside CA's software services capability and our expertise to give that really pragmatic, prescriptive advice on when to move to the cloud.
So you mentioned.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say you mentioned some things like portfolio management. So is this based on some of the existing Clarity technology? Absolutely,
yeah. So the solution includes usage of Clarity PPM on demand. So we're actually using the on-demand software as a service version of Clarity in this solution.
So Andy, we're talking about cloud migration here. So we're talking about the initial migration from, say, on-premise into a cloud environment, or are we talking about managing cloud on the hop as we go?
This is about the migration. It's about a migration decision. So this isn't actually doing the migration. It's giving you a framework to decide how to migrate, what to migrate, when to migrate. It's easy to pick some low-hanging fruit and think you can migrate a web server to the cloud or change your Salesforce management system to salesforce.com. But it's another thing to look at your own in-house mission-critical applications and look at converting to your online software as a service, whether you do a lift and shift into an infrastructure as a service, what's critical to you in terms of your service levels, the cost you're going to pay, all of these sorts of criteria, whether you've got capacity inside your environment to do it on a private cloud, whether you need to use the elastic and scalability of an external public cloud. These sorts of decisions are what our customers said they needed help with. So we came out with this solution to help them do that.
So the timing sounds pretty good in terms of what we're seeing in the market with a lot of big organisations looking to fix up their big enterprise applications, I guess. So is there a specific industry drive you're looking at for this? Is it in terms of banking or government, or is it just generally for those big organisations who have some quite complex decisions to make about their legacy environments?
Actually, we polled several dozen customers directly. We met with CIOs, with VPs, to talk to them about what they needed. And it really was across the board. I mean, CA Technologies, we've got customers in all of those that you talked about, in finance, in government, in insurance, in healthcare, in manufacturing, in retail, and it really pretty much was across the board.
Okay, so the cloud offering, what were some of the other announcements? You mentioned 4.
Well, there were other new enhancements to Cloud Commons. Now, you probably remember cloudcommons.com. We launched that 18 months ago at the last CA World as a portal and a community. So we've got a lot of content on there. We've got a lot of bloggers on there. We've got white papers up on there. We've got a community of about 3,000 people. There's the Cloud Commons newsletter goes out every week to update all that community on what's been happening in cloud over that week. We added to that some more capabilities, and this is actually really exciting. It's an industry first, we think. It's a real enterprise app store that you can connect software vendors, independent software vendors, not just CA, but anyone, with enterprises to buy their solutions and service providers to host those solutions. So an enterprise buyer can go online, look for a particular software solution, be it a platform as a service solution, a software as a service solution, something they need to do. They can look at ratings and rankings. They can find solutions that are compatible with CA App Logic for that easy containerized deployment. Then they can go and look at a list of potential providers, service providers they could host that solution on. And again, they can use an updated version of the Service Measurement Index to compare their needs with the hosting provider's capabilities. And then, using a simple online credit card-based transaction, they can buy the service and install it out on the hosting provider and run it straight away. So it's a real, this is why we think it's a real enterprise class marketplace.
Yeah, sure. So does Andy, can I ask you, does it, is it essentially, I mean, it sounds like it's pretty much a dating agency, kind of role between the ISVs and potential hosting providers, or it's not a case of the applications are there and they're centrally hosted on some CA data center somewhere. It's really that bringing the two together, right?
Yeah, exactly, mate. I hadn't thought of that analogy of being an online dating center for the enterprise and cloud host, but sure, I'm going to go with that. That's pretty much exactly what it is. Yeah,
it'll make those Russian applications very interesting.
Yep. Well, I mean, the way we think of it is taking away the friction from the process. There's a lot of difficulty in getting a service solution, whether it's PaaS or SaaS or whatever. There's also a lot of friction in getting that solution installed and instantiated up on a third-party hosting provider. And there's always the consternation about, am I buying the right thing? Am I getting the right host? Have they got the right reputation, the reliability, the security, the geographic location, all of that sort of stuff? So yeah, it takes a lot of the friction out of the process.
Yeah, great. And it's also, I think it kind of highlights the fact that, as you say, the cloud decision is often a multifaceted one with software and infrastructure and platform. And I think any opportunity to not have to take a best of breed approach where you're getting all that from a single stack is probably a very good value add for the industry at this point in time.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's certainly what we think, and we're certainly just trying to make it easier for our customers. Very much a customer-led initiative. It's using existing CA products. It's using the services capability out of the virtualization and cloud strategy group, which are all the experts that came along with the 4Base acquisition we did last year, the services company. And it's putting those together and, solving a problem that our customers are telling us they really need help solving.
Yeah, great.
Andy, just in your travels around US, I'm just wondering what's happening in the enterprise space with cloud, so cloud adoption within enterprises, because over here in Australia, we're noticing that it's starting to slow down a little, that it's a different story, if you like, talking about a web startup or a test or dev environment, but the actual enterprise ICT environment is much more difficult to move or migrate. So are you seeing that it's slowing down a little bit in the States as well?
So I don't have any data on that, but what I am seeing is sort of similar. A lot of enterprises are having difficulty and not really very confident about moving to the public cloud. And you're right, it is sometimes a difficult decision and sometimes a costly one. What I am seeing is a lot of enterprises and government as well putting a lot of their effort back into their virtualization and their automation efforts. So within the enterprise and within government, we're seeing a lot of work around things like CA Automation Suite for Clouds, which is helping them work on the internal environment rather than jump to the public cloud. I will say, though, with service providers, we're getting a lot of activity and a lot of traction with the CA App Logic solution that helps the service providers build out an environment for cloud significantly for sort of the mid-sized and emerging enterprises rather than those large enterprises. So it's a similar sort of pattern, but it varies by, yeah, as you said, it varies by the size of the organizations.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a case that there's so many different aspects to cloud activity in the market. And we get very much caught up in whether cloud adoption is about end user organizations buying services from vendors, when in actual fact there is so much activity going on with organizations still trying to get their service catalogs right after how many years? We're a good 20, 25 years into that battle, and still so many organisations are struggling with it. I like to use the example where it actually took less time for the US government to throw 1,000 scientists at mapping the human genome than it's actually taken a lot of organisations to figure out what services they're offering from an IT perspective. So,
it's really true too, And so trying to squeeze the most juice they can, trying to get the best value they can out of those existing investments, a lot of the time that's a higher priority, right?
Yeah, sure. So Andy, so the last two big announcements, there are obviously probably 50 this week, but these other two.
Yeah, the big ones for the cloud at least, the announcement of two brand new solutions in the CloudMinder portfolio. Now, CloudMinder is our portfolio of security as a service solutions. So we announced two new solutions, Identity Access Management as a service and CA FedMinder as a service. So Identity and Access Management is essentially that, user management, provisioning, request management, all the things you get with identity and access, available as a SaaS model. So you can instantly jump online, register, get the value really straight away, which is really playing to that agility. And the theme of our conference was IT at the speed of business. So when the business wants to go out and start using identity and access management for cloud-based or internal solutions, CA Identity and Access Management as a service, you can get that pretty much straight away. With FedMinder as a service, that's single sign-on provided as a software as a service option. So you can provide single sign-on to things like Google Apps, Salesforce.com, Amazon AWS, as well as your internal apps through a single user interface. So it's totally seamless to the end user. But again, it gets you to there really quickly.
Is that across all platforms? So it doesn't matter what hypervisor you're using, that's agnostic to the platform?
Yeah, that's actually available software as a service, so you don't have to install anything. It'll go across any kind of environment, any application environment.
That's really fantastic. I think it might have a few companies like Ironbridge a little bit concerned. That integration level for identity and access and security has quite often been an expensive piece of that middleware.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what our customers are telling us. And the nice thing for us and for our customers is it's part of this whole suite, right? So you've got already the properties and the capabilities out of the CA Arcot acquisition, which is all software as a service. And so you've got their authentication, you've got federation, you've got a bunch of capabilities in security, all available software as a service in the CloudMinder portfolio.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic.
That's great.
Andy, I think we're going to have to wrap it up there, but I know you've still got a day left in your week. It's only Thursday night where you are. So, look, thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we'll get to speak to you again soon. There sounds like some fantastic announcements from CA this week.
Yeah, Pete, Scott, great to talk to you guys. Hopefully I'll see you down under in not much time. If you guys can't come up here, I'll see you there. Thanks.
Will do. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
To cloud. The first one was a brand new solution called CA Cloud 360. So we call it central intelligence for the cloud. It's a decision-making engine. It's a combination of products which help CIOs and VPs decide what applications, if any, to move to the cloud, what clouds to move them to, whether it's private or public infrastructure, platform, or software as a service.
And we're talking to Andy Mann, who's the Vice President of Strategic Solutions. And Andy, I believe you're fresh from a week at CA World in Las Vegas.
Yeah, look, hi Peter, how you doing? Straight off the plane, I'm still alive, so I think that's a win.
Yeah, you look surprisingly fresh.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
So for those who follow Andy on Twitter, we know he's a prolific commentator on the industry.
And when to move them. So it takes a prescriptive 4-step approach using portfolio management, using service level management, using capacity management, and using simulation and modeling tools alongside CA's software services capability and our expertise to give that really practical, pragmatic, prescriptive advice on when to move to the cloud.
So you mentioned Hi, you're with Peter Carr and Scott Stewart on LTV's The Research Channel. Well, today we're crossing back to the United States and very feverish about cloud. So, and we know there were a couple of key announcements made at CA World this week, Andy. So, for those of us who couldn't make it over, can you give us a couple of the high points?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there was a whole lot of stuff. Brand new releases was part of the really exciting stuff we did at CA World this week. So we had 4 really significant announcements pertaining